Everybody. Ooh, special live today. You guys have been requesting and requesting and requesting. We don't talk about this much, but I said screw it. Let's go ahead and talk about it today. Um, so we get a lot of questions from you guys about dating. What's the dating life going to be like? What's dating going to be like? What are the men like? What are the women like? Blah 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 blah. Right? And then also indirectly, nobody says it this way, but what they're actually asking is what are the social classes like, and what are my peer groups going to be like, and so on and so forth. Huh. Looks like one of my car windows is down. Interesting. So, so we've decided, especially since this might be the last live with the kind of Q&A feel to it. From here on out, it's probably going to be individual shows. Let me go ahead and get my personal up here in this TikTok stream. There we go. But yes. So let's go ahead and get into it. Mm, all right, there we go. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for tapping. All right, so yes, let's go ahead. We'll get into it. Most of the questions are around the dating scene. Are what's the dating scene like? Am I going to be able to find love out there? Things of that nature. The answer is it depends on you, right? It depends on whether you're ready. All right, so let's start there. You're going to be the biggest factor in the dating scene success. However, it's definitely here. You can definitely find it. I'm married to a Kenyan. A lot of the relocatees over the last decade are married to local people, whether it's male or female. Mm. There are some there are some mistakes that people make over and over and over and over again. Right? The number one mistake: stop marrying the maid. stop, stop marrying the maid. She's perfect because she's working. She will change when you marry her, right? So, and it's not even necessarily something to fall for. It's not like it's some trick that they're playing on you. They're doing a good job at work. That is not how they would be as your wife. That's not like what their husband gets. I don't know why, because you would think you would think that their husband would get a better version of them than you do, but they don't. Stop marrying the maid. All right, the maid's really great at her job. I know. I get it. We have multiple maids in this household. Whatever. I understand. She remembers everything. She cleans everything. She has everything prepared for you before you even ask for it. I get it. That's not the real her. That's how she does her job. Stop marrying the maid. All right. Now, women who have male maids, there's been, other levels of success there. Typically, a man's going to act the way he is no matter what. So women have been more successful in that. However, we're talking about women from the Western world who have relocated to Kenya. So eventually, it falls apart anyway. The only difference is when the guy marries the maid, it's the maid who changes because now she's the wife. And when the girl marries the maid, she doesn't respect him because he's a maid, right? So it tends to fall apart anyway. I think there's only one young lady. Well, that was almost 10 years ago. So, but there's only one lady that we relocated. She married the they call it a houseboy, but she married the maid, and they're together. Like she's cool with it. She doesn't. He's essentially a house husband, and she's okay with that. So that worked. But guys, it's a different thing with the guys, and you do this all the time. Stop marrying the maid. I get it. Trust me, I get it. When I first came here, I wasn't married. right? So I understand the maids are perfect. It's because they're working. Stop falling for that nonsense, dude, you know. And again, they're not trying to trap you. They're not even thinking of that. But they are not going to be what they are as the maid after you marry them. So get that shit out of your head. So that's the number one mistake that a lot of you guys make is with the maid. Don't marry the maid. All right. Now, beyond that, definitely look for somebody in your social class. Your social class may have just changed, right? So if you relocate, your social class may have just changed. So you might have been lower middle class where you're coming from. Now you're lower upper class during the relocation, right? Now I know as guys we can kind of grab anybody. Like we can get the chick sweeping the floor at the McDonald's and marry. I get that. But you don't necessarily want to do that on a relocate simply because you don't know the lay of the land, right? So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're dating in the same class. Um, you want to make sure that the people you're dating have some sort of substance because people with nothing to lose do anything because it doesn't matter. Even the punishment for anything they do is an upgrade to their lifestyle, right? Same thing in the U.S. really, but in the U.S. you know the landscape better, so you can recognize the game, right? So, um, so people who have nothing to lose, you definitely don't want to deal with that. You want somebody on the same level. Let's see what we got here. Um, how do you help one relocate? I might be interested. Well, just go to our website. This is a business account. Go to our website, fill out the assessment, and the assessment will let you know whether you're qualified to work with us or not. We have a law firm, an immigration firm, and so that's how we help people relocate. All right. So, what is it about the maid that makes so many? Okay. So, the maid, how can I explain it? It shocked me too. And I've lived all over the place and I've had maids all over the place. Kenyan maids are top notch. So there's that. So I get it. And I'm trying to think how I can describe this other than to say like the maid presents as the perfect wife. I don't know. I don't know like, exactly how to break it down. All right. So the maid becomes like a stand in um, architect of the household. Okay, so what ends up happening is um, she doesn't just clean, right? Like she learns your routine, or he. There are male maids as well, right? So they learn your routine and they set you up for success every day, right? So if they know that you have to wake up early to go do whatever work you're doing, they're going to, get the food ready, have it sitting on the counter. They're going to learn the things that you like to eat. They're going to learn the way you like them cooked. They're going like all of that, right? All of that's included, Whereas, like when I was in China, my maid didn't do that. So I had to have a maid and like a private chef and like, all of that stuff to the same, kind of service. So the maid does all of that. So for people who aren't used to that, and even people who are used to having help, the maids here are better than what you're used to. So it's still gonna like be like, whoa, this person's great. And what ends up happening is if it's like the first one, you think that person is exceptional. You think that the rest of the people are just like the people you've dealt with before, and this person you just got lucky and got this exceptional person, right? So that's the rabbit hole, that these guys fall down into, and then end up, not realizing that they're just doing a good job, like they're just really good at their job, and they work out well. Name of the website, it's diasporaltd.com, but it's in the bio. It's in everybody on all of the live streams right now. You guys can all see our website in the bio because all of our live streams are business accounts. I'm not on any personal like accounts. So no matter where you're watching us right now, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, whether it's TikTok, whether it's what's that other one that we're on? What's it called? The black owned one. Fan base, whether it's fan base, they're all business accounts. So you'll get the website in there. It's all in the bio slash profile slash whatever, that thing has. Oh, they're living. They're typically living. I'm sorry. That completely slipped my mind because it's normal here. Yeah, you're if you're hiring a maid, they're typically living. So the maid lives there. Yes, yes, yes. That's how they learn everything. Yeah, that's a great question. It slipped my mind completely to identify that. Yes, they're typically living maid. I'm telling you, some of these guys lose their mind. The ladies too. Again, ladies marry maids too. It's not a guy thing. It's just more successful with the ladies. But even then, don't do it. Just go date. Hold on. This comment was blocked. So let me see what it is. I don't know why they blocked that. Let me approve it. Okay. So the comment says, can you help one from Kenya to diaspora like us? Can you help one from Kenya to diaspora? Like, I don't know what that means. Ask it again. Ask it again more clearly. It might be my English. My English might be Englishing. Hey Joy Joyce, how are you? Yes, yes, no, no, no. They live. They live in your house. Yep. So typically, houses have something called a DSQ, right, which stands for like dedicated servants quarters. And so the DSQ is like an apartment. Like it has its own kitchen, it has its own shower, it has its own bedroom. Sometimes it has its own access to the outside, right? So like they can like when they're not working, they can come and go without bothering the people in the house, right? So yeah, yeah, yeah. No, they live in the house, but the house essentially has like an apartment attached to it, and they live in that apartment. It happens a lot. I'm telling you, there was a guy from where was he from? There was a guy from Belarus, somewhere over there, right in that area. He came with his wife. This freaking guy. He came with his wife from Europe, divorced the wife, married the maid. Well, no, he didn't. Europeans don't really marry. At least that's been our experience. Divorced the wife, and I don't know, had 3 kids with the maid and lives with the maid. Right? So it's one of those things where it happens a lot, but I don't know what it is. I don't know why they don't understand that like the person is working, right? That they're not going to act like that when they're with you. They act like that because they're working. Like, y'all got to stop doing that. I'm Kenyan would like to read. Oh, gotcha, gotcha. I don't. I mean, we don't. We're like an immigration law firm, so we're not like a matchmaker. It just so happens that people. One of the questions, immigrants ask is like, "Will I be able to date when I'm there?" Most of our clients are not interested in taking anyone anywhere because they're moving here. So, they'll live here and like find love here and marry someone here, but they're not like going back to America or like they left America for a reason or they left Canada for a reason or UK for a reason. So they're not interested in going back, to those places. Like I would never, the way America is dangerous for children, right? Especially black children. I would never take my son back to the United States and raise him there. So, like, for me, my kids would have to be grown for me to even consider going back to America for any kind of length of time or anything like that. Because I'm not about to get a phone call talking about there was a school shooting. I'm not about to get a phone call, like that little boy where the cops pulled up, jumped out the car, and took his life within seconds. And he's playing in the park with a toy gun like every other child does. Like, no, that's not fitting to happen with my kids. So, There, it doesn't even make sense. It's almost at this point, because I have another option. It's almost like child abuse to put my child in harm's way like that. When I have another option, I don't have to put them in harm's way. So most of the folks that are not interested in taking anybody anywhere because they're not interested in living anywhere else. So you know, yeah, yeah. Most of our clients, they'll marry a local if they're single, and they'll start a family here. And obviously they live a really good life because their money is coming from elsewhere. So whatever, but they're not going nowhere with them or traveling nowhere with them. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, your your regular travel, but I mean, like they're not immigrating their spouse anywhere else. They're the immigrant. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. The only people we help go to places like America are like business clients, and that's a different function of the firm, right? So we only assist with L1A visas. And so, in order to be able to utilize an L1A visa, you have to be a business owner. So, typically, those folks are already considering a student visa for their child for like college. And so if you have the student visa, then you have enough money to do an L1A. And then the difference is on a student visa, your kid gets kicked out of America as soon as school is done. There is a special thing you can get that lets you work for like a year or two, but then you still get kicked out. It's not an immigrant visa. Whereas an L1A, you can take your entire family to the United States with you, and then you can self-sponsor a green card. So you can bring everybody with you, and you don't have to leave, and it's the same cost as a student visa, to your pocket. So why would you? You know what I mean? Like if you're hell bent on sending your kid to Harvard or MIT or whatever, then you might as well do an L1A and get the entire family a green card. So and then that way, you know, the kid can register not as a student visa, so there might be additional foreign financial aid and that type of stuff that's available to them. Because when you register as a student visa, you have to have all the money for college up front, right? So anyone who can handle a student visa has enough money to be able to handle better options. They just don't know those better options exist. So as far as that type of stuff is concerned, that's the only way that we assist with that. You said the women are more successful. Why is that? Oh, with the marrying the maid thing? Okay. So so what ends up happening is I think it's just nature. I think it's just male versus female nature. Like when the guy marries the female maid, she becomes a wife and she wants to, like, I don't know, have a soft life. Like she doesn't want to do the maid duties anymore in the house, right? Which is essentially why he married her. So that gets bad real fast, right? But when a woman marries the male maid, men don't necessarily change up like who they are in the job, right? And so you typically get the same guy, but because of where the women are coming from that are our clients in the West, respect from male to female is difficultly earned, I guess, if there's no hypergamy, right? Because hypergamy is like a Western standard of dating. So now you have a man that definitely makes less than you. Cleans houses for a living. You know what I mean? So then you get into this weird thing where now it's the woman who doesn't respect the partner, at least in our experience, what we've seen with our clients, right? It's not, we haven't met every single person on the planet, so I'm sure there are exceptions. But, and what we've seen, now the woman doesn't respect the partner because he's a maid, right? Um, he might not be used to leading, right? Because his job is to take her direction, and he might maintain that position. So, like, she's leading, which she might not respect either. So they end up like messing up the relationship on that side. They typically do get what they paid for though. Like, you know what I mean? They still have the same person, whereas the guys, they don't. The person they marry isn't the person that they fell in love with, I suppose. Um, so there's like a difference in how it goes awry, but it typically goes awry. Like I said, there's only one client out of the what over 12 years that we've been doing this stuff. There's only one client who married the male maid, who ended up with a male maid. So he's like a house husband. Like he stays home, takes care of the kids. Like he doesn't go anywhere. He cleans the house, he cooks, he whatever. And they've been married for the better part of like 10 years. Like she's cool with that, right? So she was like honest with herself. Like she didn't need the leader man, whatever, whatever. You know what I mean? Like she was okay with like a domesticated man, I guess. That's the only one. So all of the girls who married the male maids, they primarily they all cheated on their husband because they didn't respect them, and that's typically what happens. And then it falls apart that way. And for the guys, there's not really a cheating thing. They just didn't get the woman that they thought they knew, I guess, or whatever. So they get a different woman, and that's how that falls apart. So it's like you're wasting time. Like just don't do it, right? Like don't marry the maid. You're gonna waste 5 years or whatever till it falls apart and whatever. Better to just find somebody in your social class, but you need to identify what your new social class is, because your social class is not the same as it was, right? So you have to identify same social class and then date on that social class. Date people that have things to lose, not people that have nothing to lose, because they will act accordingly. So date people with careers that have licenses. That's always helpful. Anyone with a career that has a license acts better in general, including in the United States, right? So if you're a licensed architect, if you act up, you can lose your license. If you're a registered nurse, you act up, you can lose your license. If you're an attorney, act up, you can lose your license, right? So those people aren't people that switch up on you, quickly, or might become dangerous or might become whatever, right? Um, you dating some fast food worker, why not rob you? You know what I mean? The worst case scenario, I go to jail where maybe I get three meals a day. Maybe I'm only eating one meal a day free. So that jail might be an upgrade, right? That's what you don't want, right? You don't want people who got nothing to lose, who the punishments for acting the fool might actually improve their life. You don't want that, right? So make sure that you identify what your new social class is and that you're operating on that social class. But the kind of rule of thumb that we tell clients who come to us and they're like, hey, I'm dating, where do I start? Blah, 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 is date people who have licenses. People with licenses act different even in public, even when they're not working, because typically your license is at risk at all times, not just when you're working. Right. So those people do not try to rob people. Those people do not fight and hurt people and, domestic violence and all of that stuff. Like any of that type of stuff that comes out, your license is at risk, your career is at risk, right? So let society help keep people straight, so that you're dating safely, and then move forward from there. Case in point, there was a Kenyan. This was a big thing. You probably saw this, right? Went viral like last week. There was a Kenyan guy who's from the United States. He's a registered nurse, I'm pretty sure. So he has a license, and some random girl that he was dating in Kenya, long distance. He comes here to visit her, whatever. And then there's a video of her seeming to be inebriated, and she's not wearing any underwear, and he lifts up her skirt on the video and like shows whatever, right? And everybody's like, "Oh, get him fired!" They're finding where he works at as a nurse, all of that stuff, trying to get him permanently banned from the country, all of that, right? So this went so far as the country's FBI gets involved, right? And they find out doing their investigation that she's the one who like got all the recordings and all of that stuff, and she released it herself. Because unlike him, she ain't got no licenses, she ain't got no career, she ain't got nothing to lose. So she made this viral moment. Dude almost got messed up and fired and all of that. It took for like the FBI to come in, and they were coming in to get him. It's not like they were coming in to protect him, right? They were doing an investigation to get him, right? And in the investigation, there was digital evidence that she set the whole thing up, right? So The issue becomes if you're not messing with somebody that is on your level, they can do anything, right? If they got nothing to lose, if they're just some girl that works at a bar, or there's just some guy that works, at a hotel or something, they ain't got nothing to lose, they can do anything to you. Because, like, what's going to happen to her now? She's not going to jail for that. She might get some online shame, but her life didn't change. What could have happened to him? His whole life could have been turned upside down because he actually has stuff to lose. So you got to stop doing that. You know, I know we do it in the United States, but you got to stop doing that weird stuff where you're a lawyer and you'll date a freaking McDonald's worker. You got to cut that out, right? You got to make sure that you're dating on the same level. All right. All right. I don't know about all that, but the life has to be on the same level. Everybody has a life, right? It's not about turning your nose up or looking down on somebody or whatever, but it's about being equally yoked. So if that's where you come from, like we actually had, that's actually, I'm happy you said that actually, Abraham. We actually had a guy who worked for, was it Hilton? I think it was Hilton. Yes, it was Hilton because there used to be a hotel called the Hilton Nairobi, and it's not there anymore. Or the building might be there, but it's not the Hilton anymore. But the fact remains, he worked for Hilton, and he was like a nobody at Hilton. He was like the people who carry your bags. I forget the name of it, right? So the people who carry your bags and like take them up to your room, and that's their job. They don't do anything else. That's what he did for Hilton. But because he worked for Hilton, he could stay at any Hilton anywhere in the world for like peanuts, right? I forget how cheap it was, but it was very cheap, like maybe $30 a night or something like that, right? So he would always stay at the Hilton, like when he was coming here and he was getting his money together so that he could move to Kenya and all that. And he ended up dealing with what was the name of the hotel? Well, I guess I shouldn't even say the name of the hotel, but he ended up marrying a manager of a hotel in Nairobi, and they were like on the same level. Like even though he was, the bag boy in the U.S., socioeconomic wise, when he came here, he was at the same level as the manager here, right? So like his dollars put him at the same socioeconomic level as the manager, and like they got together. Everything is everything. It's not, you know what I mean. So it's not to say she didn't have a life or he didn't have a life because they worked in a hotel, but they were equally yoked, right? So like she wasn't trying to get in trouble or lose her GM ship. He has now had to figure out what socioeconomic level he was at, but he got that all sorted, and they've been married for 11 years. Got 4 kids. They live a great life. They used to live in Karen. They moved to, where did they go? Why is I'm hearing in my head is screaming Kichiado County. But anyway, they got a great life. Everything is everything, right? But when you do this like really weird mismatch thing, where one person has absolutely nothing to lose, and the only thing that could happen to them is they get a benefit no matter what. Um, and then on the other side, you got everything to lose. It's just not going to work out. At least that's been what we've seen over a decade and a half, right? I'm sure there are these times where it does work out or whatever, but why risk it? You know? Yeah, yeah. Listen, when you get here, there's a wave of euphoria that happens, right? All of our clients report the same thing, right? So you get here, and it happened to me too, right? So when you get here, there's a wave of euphoria. Everything is new, everything is awesome. Kenya has some of the friendliest people on the planet. So everybody's friendly, everything is new, everything is awesome. Police aren't trying to, kill you in the street, right? Which happens where we come from. So all of a sudden, law enforcement isn't trying to take your life every chance they can. Everything's awesome, and because of that, it's real easy for you to get into a situation where you're like you almost imprint on somebody, right? So you're having this incredibly awesome time. All the people are beautiful. The food is beautiful. The palm trees are beautiful. Depending on where you live, like wherever you are, all the beautiful things are happening. And then there's this person, and you imprint all the beautiful things onto that person, and move too fast, right? So that's something to kind of look out for that nobody really talks about, is that you're in a ripe position to almost, I don't want to say it's fake love, but you're almost prepped for love. So you might not really be falling in love with the person. You might be falling into love with the environment, and there just happens to be a person there while you're doing that, and then you kind of imprint onto them and think you're in love with them, and so on and so forth, right? So take a step back, take a breath, learn your surroundings and all of that, figure out where you fit in, and then go from there, right? Think about where you're going, right? This is not the UK, this is not Toronto, this is not, the US, right? Think about where it is you're going. If all you're doing is going to like clubs and bars, then, it becomes an issue. The people that you're dealing with, are a certain type of person, and they're not necessarily taking things seriously, right? So you don't want to spend all your time on the rooftop bar, looking for a serious relationship. Now, if you're not looking for anything serious, that's exactly where you go, right? There's plenty of young folks that come through here. The folks that are coming through and relocating for dual citizenship have to be 35 years old or older by law, right? So most of those folks that are looking for dual citizenship are old enough that they're past that. But there's a lot of digital nomads. Digital nomads can be any age from 18, right? There's a lot of digital nomads that show up, get a digital nomad permit, that aren't looking for anything, serious or anything like that. So yeah, sweet. Did you say? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It happens all the time. Yeah, yeah. So I'm from Philly, so at Philadelphia, that type of stuff happens all the time. Yeah. All right. Oh, what is it? We'll go ahead and get rid of that. All right. So yeah. Sorry about that. YouTube is wild sometimes. Yeah, no, there's a pretty tough rooftop scene. I remember I remember the very first time I came here. What was the name of the club? We landed. When was it? I want to say we landed at like 12:30, and by the time we got to like our beach bungalow, in Deani, it was like 1:10 maybe, right? AM, right? And so we got here. I was much younger, much more single, obviously. And there's a bunch of us, and we were like, crap, last call's about to happen. Like, let's go get a shot. We're here, whatever. Let's go get a shot, right? And so we drove past this bar on the way to the beach bungalow thing. Remember, it's like maybe it's 1 a.m. because by the time we got there, it's like almost 1:30. I remember we were used to last call being 1:30, so we're like, it's last call now. Like, let's go get a shot, you know, a beer, and then we'll go to sleep and wake up tomorrow and see everything in the daylight. Um, and so we got there, went, got the shot, got a beer, got a whatever it was we were doing, and we expected them to be like, all right, cool, it's 2 o'clock, everybody out, because we're from Pennsylvania. Now in New York, at least at that time, I don't know what New York is doing now, but in New York, you used to be able to like drive across the border. So we would go to a place called Matamoros, Pennsylvania, and in Matamoros, Pennsylvania, there's a literal bridge, like a stone bridge that goes over the water. When you cross the bridge, you're in Port Jarvis, New York. All right, so you're in Matamoros, Pennsylvania here. There's a bridge, Port Jarvis, New York here. So you could drink in Pennsylvania until 2 a.m., get a taxi, go across the bridge into New York, and then drink till 4 a.m. Right? So the accolades of youth. So so we're there take our shots, have a beer, looking around. Here comes two. There's no last call. We're like, oh, it must be like New York. We got till 4, right? So now we're drinking. So at this point, it's like we're power drinking because we thought we only had time for one drink. It turns out the damn clubs are 24/7. We left that club at like 10 a.m. Like, what the hell is going on? Welcome to Kenya, right? So that was like the first, for like furlough into Kenya. Very, very first time I came. And so things are definitely different. If you're that party age or that young and you're not looking for anything serious and all that, go spend your time at the club, spend your time at the bars. That's fine. But the questions that led us to this live were around serious relationships and marriages and stuff like that. Um, a lot of questions were kind of focused on like how did I find my wife in particular and all that. Basically, once you're good with you can be good with somebody else. And so that's an effect that this place definitely has on you is you become good with you pretty quickly. And you have the space and the time to become good with you. There's that as well, right? And then just get in where you fit in. However, where you think you fit in is not where you fit in anymore. So that's one thing that people have to come to terms with once they get here. um, you're not in the same socioeconomic class. You've gone up at least one level. You've probably gone up two or three. So make sure that you identify what the new socioeconomic class is that you fit into, and then move in those circles. Does that make sense? Does that answer the questions so many of you guys had? Are there any, I don't know what you tried to write there. Are there any, oh, are there any dating traditions? Every group of people have their own traditions. Kind of like, so like where I came up in the U.S., where I grew up at was a place right outside of Philly that, well, when I was growing up, it was really mixed. So it might have been like 20% Hispanic, 20% Black, 20% Italian. Um, what else was there was a lot of Caribbean. Um, I'm trying to think what other mixes, and then there was like different Hispanics, right? So there was like Mexicans that had one side of town, and then Puerto Ricans had like another side of town. There were Cubans that were on the south side, and like whatever. So there was like that. Then there was a bunch of Italians that were like downtown. The northwest side was where the blacks lived, and then the northeast side was like where white people lived, right? Like it was that kind of city, where there was this giant mix or whatever, and each one of them had their own thing going. Like the Mexicans had the like a sweet 15 party, and like it was a big deal, and like the girls wore like a dress that looked like a damn wedding dress. Like everybody had their own thing, right? It's the same thing here. Every group has their own thing. So it's something to talk to them about. Don't rush into bed with people, because some people, some folks, it's like, if you're willing to sleep with me, that means you're willing to marry me, type of thing. And some folks even take it that way. Like, if you sleep with them, like that's your wife, type of type of deal, right? So don't rush into bed with people. Also, just as a matter of being safe, right? But don't rush into bed with people. Get to know people a little bit, whatever, um, and then ask them. You know what I mean? If there's any kind of tradition that they have in place, they'll tell you. Now, if it don't sound right, like if it sounds like a bunch of like we had a client call the like last week, right, where they had a loctician or whatever that was coming to their house to do their locks, and like the loctician brought a sister along or something like that. I was like, this is my sister, but if if I'm introducing you to her, but if you date my sister, then you have to take care of me too, because we're family or whatever. That's a scam. Like she tried to make it seem like there was some kind of tradition by which you have to take care of all the sisters, including the one you're dating, like whatever. So they called me, or well, not me, but they called the office confused. Like what is going on? I'm like, nah, those girls are trying to take advantage of you. Stop, get a new loctician, like you know what I mean. So if it sounds like weird, then just take it as that. Even if it is true, if it feels weird to you, then you probably shouldn't be with them. That means that their culture is odd to you, and you should probably find somebody of a different culture, right? So, if they say something that seems weird, then just let it go. And do I? No, I don't know of anything that's particularly weird. Like all the weird stuff is like out of fashion, right? So like for example, I used to live when I first came to Kenya. I lived in a place called Sunika, which is in a county called Kisii. And so the people there are of the Kisii ethnic group. And so in Kisii, they had a like the wedding rings were actually like ankle bracelets that like were permanent. Like they were like ankle bracelets that were like put on while soft, but they were made of like leather, and then the leather hardened, and then the only way to get them off is like to cut them off type of thing, right? So they were like permanent ankle bracelets called egetinge. And so if you saw the egetinge, then you knew that woman was married, and so you wouldn't like sleep with her, and you wouldn't like whatever. And there was no way to like take them off, like how you could take off a ring and then go do whatever, put the ring back on, right? So you couldn't take egetinge off. So that's how they did. That doesn't exist anymore though. That's like an ancient thing. You know what I mean? There's nobody with egetenge in Kisi anymore, right? So like all of the stuff that might be a little odd, it's all it's all old, it's all gone. So I've never encountered anything that seems too particularly odd. Hey Esther, how are you? I can't think of I can't think of anything like that. The divorce rate last I saw, the divorce rate was I believe it's less than 1%. Yeah, definitely less than 10%. So not even close to like the 50% American divorce rate. The only people I know of that are divorced are Americans, and it's mostly the damn guys who married the maid. Stop marrying the maid. I'm telling you, do not marry the maid. She's going to seem perfect, but she's not doing that to try and get you to marry her. She's just really good at her job. Do not marry the maid. but, but yeah, the only divorcees I know of are Americans. I don't know any Kenyans who are divorced. Oh yeah, yeah. No, there was an American. She wasn't a client of ours, um, but you know, we knew her just from circles or whatever. And she ended up marrying a tuk-tuk driver, which is like not even a taxi driver. It's like a taxi driver who can't afford a car, right? So a tuk-tuk is like it's a trike, is exactly what it is actually, right? So it's like a trike, and then people can get in the trike, and you pay like 60 shillings, you know what I mean? So it's like 25 cents a ride type of thing. And it's loud and it's outside. If it's raining, you get wet. Like it's not, it's a poor man's taxi, right? Um, Man, that thing was crazy. She messed with this tuk-tuk driver. Remember I said you got to deal with people on your level who got something to lose, right? So she deals with the tuk-tuk driver. He convinces her that this like wedding ceremony on the beach is their tribal version of a real wedding. So they never actually really get married, right? So red flag number one. So they're not actually legally married, but she thinks that they are. And then a maid is presented. So now there's a maid in the house. Like I said, the maids live there, right? So now there's a maid that lives in the house. Turns out the maid is the actual wife right? So now the wife is living in the house with the fake wife that obviously they're just, using for money, right? And so it's one of those things when if you're going to, relocate, you have to date within class. When you're in your home base and you understand everything and your whole family is there, you know the laws, you know how everything works, you know tradition, you can be, a lawyer who dates a girl at McDonald's. You cannot do that when you relocate to another country. You have to date within class. They got to have something to lose. They got to be that if they scam you, they lose something. They go to jail. They lose a house. They lose their license. They lose a really good job. Like whatever. You can't set yourself up for failure and then be upset when failure strikes, right? So that's what happened. She spent a bunch of time, bought a bunch of houses and land and all kind of stuff, and now dude and his wife live in all them houses and the land and and she like, has kind of been cast aside. And so it is what it is, and and I think she barely even actually qualified to really be here, which is one of the differences with our firm and other firms, right? Like I said, she wasn't a client of ours, but a lot of firms will not pre-qualify you, and so you might not actually be able to afford the relocation, and they'll just take whatever, and pocket whatever money they can from you and get you over here, maybe, right? And then you're left, right? Then you're up to your own devices. Because for a while there, it looked like she was in a bad way, right? Like it looked like she was kind of living in a car for a while and like whatever. So that's crazy, right? You definitely ain't trying to go to no other country and end up living in your car, all that old nonsense. So, definitely better to have a solid team of professionals that get you over there in the first place, that pre-qualify you and make sure that you're good and have you set up in the right way. Like most of our clients, our estate planning attorneys will set up trusts for them anyway. So everything that they do on this side, everything they own on this side, all of that stuff is in a trust. Right? The trust owns it, not them. So if that would have been what she would have done, and we actually had a conversation. I think she just couldn't afford us, but we actually had a conversation about that with her, before all of this, happened. Um, and so if her stuff would have been in a trust, homeboy and his real wife wouldn't be over there enjoying it right now because he wouldn't have been able to, first of all, they wasn't actually married, so he wouldn't have been able to take it that way. So that's number one. But then number two, if the trust owned it, wouldn't have married whether they were married or not, wouldn't have been marital property. It would have been the trust property. So, there's definitely ways to make sure that you're protected all the way around. And that doesn't even, matter whether you're immigrating somewhere or not. You can use a trust in virtually every country. I can't think of a country where there are no trust laws. So you can use a trust in any country and just protect yourself in general. But definitely, when you're going to a place where you don't know the rules, what you're supposed to do is link up with a professional team that has, a full-on legal team and make sure that you're covered. So there's that. Yeah, no, super sad, super sad. You're absolutely correct. Super sad. But see, it's the love thing, man. Sometimes that love puts you in a position where things go awry. So a lot of our generational wealth trust people, there are articles in the trust deed and clauses in the trust deed that no matter how much of in love you think you are, you can't share the trust with your spouse. The trust is never marital property. And you can't demand a certain distribution that's guaranteed, right? So once money comes out of the trust and it goes into your bank account, obviously that could be marital property, right? But the trust itself and the money that's in trust, you don't have a guaranteed right to it, right? And by not having a guaranteed right to it, let's say you do get divorced, and let's say for some weird reason that divorce judge rules that the offshore that matters, because if it's domestic you're screwed, because then the trust is in the judge's jurisdiction. But that offshore trust that is not even in American jurisdiction is somehow marital property, and the judge orders you to request a distribution from that trust to give half of it to your ex spouse or whatever. What'll end up happening is when you ask for that distribution, the trustee will swear you in under penalty of perjury. No judge can order you to perjure yourself, right? And so they'll swear you in under penalty of perjury. They'll ask you if this is a result of a judge's order or if you're under any kind of duress. And as soon as you say yes, the trustee will just say, no, I'm not giving you the distribution, period. And the trustee has the right to do that. And the trust owns the assets, not you. So that's the end of it. There's nothing that can be done. You complied with the court's order, you asked for the distribution, but the trust is not distributing anything, right? So the only thing that can happen there is like an intercept. Like they can say, all right, well, when it does distribute something to you, every time it distributes something to you, you give half of it to, you know, the spouse or whatever. And then there's just then you decide what you want to do from there. Typically, what'll end up happening is it'll force a settlement because you could just be like, all right, cool. I'm not taking any distributions till the day I die, and then it's going to my kids, and that's the end of that. Done, right? So if they want something while they're alive, they would have to come and settle for pennies on the dollar, right? And that would be it. So typically, it'll force a settlement. We've had clients. We had a client that sold a company, and they sold the company. What was it? They sold the company. It was like a plumbing company or something like that. Decent company, made good money. They sold it at 3x, and it was like 300 million. So they're making decent money. Um, and the person who bought the plumbing company just, I think there was like an ethnic part of it as well. Like I think it was like an old Italian plumbing company, and so he showed up and he knew Italian stuff, and they said that they spoke Italian to each other and all of that. It's like an old world plumbing company. So the person who bought it didn't have that, and so they started losing money. Like the community started finding another Italian to deal with instead of like the new owner or whatever. And so guy comes back a few years later and essentially accused him of like not disclosing enough or whatever, and said it was like a fraudulent deal, tried to get all his money back. But he had an offshore trust with us. We had relocated him for retirement purposes. And so once the lawyer who was suing in New York and all of that, once they got into this guy and saw what was going on, remember it was $300 million. They ended up settling for 150,000 because they couldn't get the money. Period. They could get the judgment, they could win the court case, all of that, but they couldn't touch the money at all because it was in that trust. And so judge could have ordered him to do whatever. He would have complied with the court order. The trustee would have said "F you," and that would have been the end of it because the trust is outside of the jurisdiction, and he's outside of the jurisdiction. So at that point, he's in the most beautiful situation. But that's how offshore trusts work. If it was a local New York trust, it wouldn't have mattered. They would have pressed the issue because then the judge could have just seized the trust and seized its bank accounts and all of that stuff. But when the trust is offshore and the bank accounts are offshore, then they got to play nice. So that's how that works. Well, yes, if you try to do it yourself, or if your team is an idiot. Oh, for the you guys on the other live streams, what the question was is can't they bring the judgment and file it in your jurisdiction, which is a lawyer question. It seems like you know a little bit of law. Most people wouldn't ask that question. But the answer is yes if your team was a bunch of fools, right? The countries you choose to do offshore trust in restrict that, right? You don't just put an offshore trust in any old country. You choose countries that restrict exactly that kind of thing. So there are some countries, for example, that if you're going to come and bring a judgment from another country and try to file it in their country, you need to put up a $10 million bond because you don't pay taxes there. So they see it as like you're using our court system and you don't pay for our court system. So now you got to put up a bond, to show that you actually have a real case and you're not wasting legal resources because you don't pay taxes here, right? There are other places where they will only allow you to do that if exactly what you have a judgment for is also illegal in that jurisdiction, right? And so that is sometimes quite rare, depending on like what it is that you're at risk for, right? So depending on like what your industry is and what's the most common thing people in that industry are sued for, you can find a jurisdiction where that law doesn't exist, and in that way they can't file the judgment there. The other thing is just because your trust is in one jurisdiction doesn't mean that your bank accounts need to be in that jurisdiction, right? So you could have your trust in one jurisdiction, and the trust can have its bank accounts in a completely different jurisdiction that has increased banking protections, right? So like Americans, for the most part, unless they're very very rich, can't bank in Switzerland anymore. Like Swiss just don't want anything to do with IRS, and like they don't care. They're over it. So unless you're trying to open a bank account with $10 million, they really don't give a damn about you wanting to open a Swiss bank account. That those days are done. But that's for Americans. Your trust is not an American. Your trust is technically a citizen of whatever country it's set up in. So now all of a sudden you do have access to one of the strictest banking jurisdictions in the world, right? Your trust can have a Swiss bank account, right? But there are even better places depending on what it is you're trying to do. You can have a Mauritius bank account. You can have a Seychelles bank account. Um, you can have a Hong Kong bank account. You can have a Singapore bank account. You can have a British Virgin Islands bank account. So there's all that you can. Your trust can have a bank account anywhere you want it to be, and that would take care of that. So yeah, you're as long as you do the trust right in the beginning and you're dealing with a solid team, you're completely insulated. If you have an offshore trust, right? Completely insulated. As long as it was done right. If that trust isn't written right, you're screwed. Right? So that's how that works. So yeah, you can protect yourself no matter where you are you, by utilizing that. We have a lot of people. So we do generational wealth trusts, primarily. Asset protection trusts are a very small fraction of our trust business. And so we've had plenty of situations where the next generation encounters like a gold digger, and the trust completely and utterly saves them, right? Because a gold digger marry them, have a baby, file for a divorce, they want half of everything. Come to find out, they own nothing. The trust owns everything, and sometimes not even directly. So like the trust will own a company, and they might be working for that company. They've been working for that company for years before they met the person they married, right? That's important. It can't be a reaction to the situation, right? And so like the last time it happened, the guy had been working for the company for maybe 4 or 5 years before he met the girl, and then they got married in like a year, had a baby, within a year, and divorce was up by year three, right? And so by year three of the marriage, the trust had been, established, at least 9 years earlier, and not by him. It was established by his parents because it's a generational wealth trust, actually his grandparents. And so he's working for the company, making minimum wage. He's been making minimum wage since the first day he worked for that company. The company had all kinds of like perks, but they were global perks, which means other executives in the company got those perks, not just him. So one of the perks was company car, other perk was company house, so on and so forth. And it was a car service. There was a driver, right? So he didn't even control the car, right? And then the houses, they were like connected. Like it's like three houses that I guess the one in the middle is fully attached, but the ones on the ends are semi-attached, right? And then they all have different corporate executives in there, so you could get corporate housing and all that stuff or whatever. So when it came time to divide marital assets, uh, there was like intangible assets that they had, like the clothing and stuff that they had bought during the marriage and stuff like that. But the house, he didn't own the house. He made minimum wage, so the child support was set at $50 a month. He didn't own the car. You know what I mean? So none of that stuff he owned. So it actually protected him. Now that wasn't actually their focus. but they've made it part of their trust permanently moving forward. It just so happened to work out that way. There was no protection for that scenario built into the trust because they could never even imagine that scenario. But when it played out that way, they now made that an actual part of how they do things. So like now, all of their kids, end up working for the companies that are owned by the trust, and then they end up, making minimum wage their entire life. But they get these distributions from the trust, and they get this extra stuff that comes out of the trust. They get corporate housing and car services and things like that. So their life is great, but on paper they're essentially dirt poor. So they're essentially broke on paper. So that's helpful too, depending on how litigious an environment you're in. You can have both. You can have both. Oh, the question was, is a trust more powerful than, or I'm sorry, more protective than a prenup? Yes and no. It depends. Like in that guy's situation, the answer is yes, because he didn't own anything. A lot of folks, they'll have the trust, and yes, the trust is kicking them out, disperse distributions and stuff like that, but they'll be making some decent money of their own way, right? So they'll be, whatever. Maybe the trust pays for college. So maybe they're a doctor that went to Harvard Medical, right? So they make $150,000 a year on their own. Well, that, obviously that's marital property. You know what I mean? So this depends on how they operate. This particular family, they don't like. Even if the person is a doctor, they volunteer essentially, at a hospital. And they work at one of the family companies for minimum wage is essentially what they do. But they've been doing it long before they even meet that person. That's important. If you do anything in response to something, then the trust won't protect you because it'll be deemed as like a sham trust. It'll be deemed that like the trust is blocking what this person should be getting and would get under any other circumstances. But if you have a long history of 10 years before I met this person, I was in the same state that I'm in now, and I've always been in that state, and intend to always be in that state, that's a whole different situation. Do you guys have any properties in Nanyuki? We typically don't have any properties anywhere, right? So typically, what ends up happening is our clients let us know where they want to live, and then our lawyers get into it and find clean pieces of land that they're not going to get scammed, or they're not like. There's a lot of stuff with the title deeds here where like a land will be sold two different times, or a land will be in court where like maybe the dad owned the land and died, and the sons are now in court fighting over the inheritance because he didn't have a trust. Right, and then one of the wives of one of the sons that's in court tries to sell the land real quick, because they have the title deed or whatever. So that kind of BS happens. By the way, we have clients that has happened to in the United States as well. So it's not just like a Kenyan thing; it's a global thing. But because we don't have the digital structure for title deeds in most of Africa. Kenya is actually implementing it right now. It's called Arti Sasa in Kenya. But because most of Africa doesn't have that digital structure, it's slightly easier to try and commit like a land fraud. So our lawyers get into it, make sure that everything is clean, locate the piece of land that works for you, and then we move forward from there. Sometimes we have land available. So like our end of year special. Do we have any of that left? The end of year special plots, the beach plots in Diani. One. So there's one. We have one end of year special plot left where we actually have the land, right? And then we can do a special price because now we know what the land costs, we know what the building materials cost. So we do like one blueprint, one piece of land, all of that, and then we can price it all out. So in those situations, then it's like, yeah, we have the land, but typically we don't. But we've built in Nanyuki before. We've built in Kisi. We've built in Meru. We've built in Embu. We've built in Kajiado. We've built in Diani. We've built in Twapa. We've built in Malindi. We built in Kwale County, Suna Sunica is also in Kisi. Um, what am I forgetting? Oh, Kakamega and Kisumu. So we can build anywhere, but it's more about the legal protection and making sure that the land is safe. Ooh, ooh, you guys are asking all the crazy questions over there on YouTube. Yeah, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't put land in your boyfriend or girlfriend's name, especially. Like if you're not married, like actually married, then don't do that. Don't use that as a way. So I think what you're asking is as a foreigner, you're supposed to get leasehold land, but you're looking at something that's freehold land, and so you're thinking about putting it in the boyfriend or the girlfriend's name. Don't do that. There's no way to get it back. There are ways to like protect, so there if you're going to do the bad thing, there are better ways to do it, right? Where you can kind of protect yourself, but it's a hassle that you don't need. Okay, on the TikTok side, looks like somebody wants. What's going on, Ruth? What can I do for you? Let me know what it is you need because we have multiple live streams, so I don't just randomly bring people up. Just let me know what your question is, and then if we need to talk it out, I'll bring you up. Hmm. Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people do that, but we don't recommend it. I mean, I guess you could encumber it. You can encumber the title deed. But if it's not a legitimate encumbrance, that might not work. What do I mean by legitimate encumbrance? Like, so people will be like, "Oh, I'll put the land in my girlfriend's name, and then I'll put $1 million encumbrance on the title deed," which means that, like, if they were to try and sell it, since they own it, not you, right? That whoever they're selling it to would have to pay you $1 million to remove your claim on the title deed before it would be able to be sold. But if you can't prove that you gave her $1 million, then you're in a situation where it's like, oh, well, this encumbrance isn't actually valid, right? So like you might think it's smart, but it doesn't actually play out that way. So what ends up happening is if you're going to do the encumbrance route and do the bad thing the right way, I guess, then it would have to be for the price of the property, where you can prove I paid this 4 million shillings for this property. I put it in her name or his name because it's freehold, but I encumbered it for the same, 4 million or whatever. And then, you probably want an agreement that gets you some interest as well. But that's a whole huge rigmarole to go through rather than just do it the right way. Hey, Catherine. I'm on multiple live streams, Catherine, so just let me know what it is you want to come up and talk about, and I'll try to answer you. And then if I need to bring you up, then so be it. But when I bring people up, what ends up happening is on all the other live streams, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Fanbase, we're on YouTube. So what ends up happening is all the other live streams hear this voice, and they're not on TikTok, and they don't know what's going on. I do it from time to time if it makes sense, but I just don't bring random people up. At least not when I'm doing this, the massive business streams. On my personal lives, I bring people up all the time. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the encumbrance will go on. You can put the encumbrance on, it'll go on. But then if it's challenged, like for a sale, that's when they'll be like, well, wait a minute, where's the 10 million? Like, how do they owe you 10 million? Show us a receipt that you gave them 10 million in the first place. And then You know. Now you're in a predicament. What's the right way? Conversion, but you need a solid legal team that can do it. But yeah, you can convert freehold into leasehold. Hey, Mumo, how's it going? How's Texas today? Yeah. Well, now see, that's weird. Like, because I hear that from people all the time. You've been with them for 6 years. Why didn't you marry them? Like, I don't understand. Why are they your? Is it a girlfriend? I can't tell if you're the guy or the girl. But like, what's going on? Are you the girl and you haven't been asked to be married? Like, what? Why would you be? Why at 6 years and not married? Cold and getting colder tomorrow. Woo! So that storm system is affecting Texas, huh? You're the guy. So why you marry her? 6 years. You know, if you're married to a Kenyan for 7 years, you get citizenship. So you just wasted 6 years. 'Well, you need to figure that out. And if you don't trust her enough to marry her, why are you thinking about putting land in her name? This is stop being dumb. This is the problem with y'all. Then you all want to talk about you're getting scammed. You're scamming yourself. Stop it. 27 degrees tomorrow night. Oh, jeez. Yeah, that's pretty crazy for Texas, especially. The bond ladder? Are the bond ladder what? Marshall. Oh, is a bond. It depends on who is a bond ladder marital property. It depends on who owns the bond, right? So most of our folks who do bond ladders, their trust owns the bond, and they're the beneficiary of the trust, and then the trust can pay out 10 million a year tax exempt to any beneficiary. So most of them, their trust owns the bond. They own the trust, or they're the beneficiary of the trust, and then that's how that works. But if you own the bond, then yeah, and you're married, then yeah, it is marital property. What if the trust owns it and you're married? If the trust owns it and you're married, it depends on when the trust was created. If the trust was created before you, and like at least 2 years before the engagement, not the marriage, the engagement, then it may be that the whatever's in the trust is not marital property. It depends on what the trust deed says. So the trust deed has to have a clause that says like nothing in this trust is to be considered marital property in the future type of thing. Um, and then it's not marital property. Yeah. Well, those who plan are the folks that get what they want, you know. Going on a cruise next week in the Caribbean. Ooh, very nice. Very, very nice. I think I'm going to Grenada in August. So, well, it's not on a cruise though. But maybe, now that you bring it up, maybe we'll take a cruise once we get there. Take care in paradise. Oh, thank you, thank you. Same to you. No, that's Grenada, not Spain. Grenada. It's in the Caribbean. Grenada is an island in Spain. Yeah. You had mentioned not going to clubs if you're looking for serious dating. So then where should you go? Go to yeah, don't go to like bar clubs. Go to like country clubs. Like, you know what I mean? Go to the golf course. Go to that type of stuff. Go to tennis clubs, you know? Go to places where there are serious people and you'll meet serious prospects. It's actually the same every, you know. Like we, I remember when I was living in Philly, there was a secretary that worked for me, and cute little thing, you know, young, great body, all of that stuff, whatever. There's no good men. There's no good men. There's no good men. Every night she was at a different like club in Philly, half naked, gyrating all night, talking about she can't find any good men. She had never been to a country club. She's never been to, a golf course. She's never been to a tennis club. She's never been to any places where men of substance reside. But she swore there were no good men in the world, right? So it's the same type of thing, right? Guys and girls. You come here, you're looking for someone of substance. Go to places where people of substance go. That's where you find them. You won't find them at the club. You might find them at the bank. So go to places where people of substance go, and you'll find the person that you're looking for. If you can't afford to go to places where people of substance go, then you might be looking for something that you yourself don't even have. So why would that person be interested in you? All right. So if you can't afford to get into the country club, maybe stop looking for country club people. Maybe that's not your level. You know what I mean? So just get it figured out. She was actually really smart, whatever, but she just was going to the wrong place. And I mean, as an employer, it's not something that you engage with. Like she can have her outbursts about whether they're good men or not, but you don't sit down and talk to your employee about where to find men at. You know what I mean? So that's not appropriate. But I could definitely see what she was doing. Yeah, yeah, no, guys too. Yeah, go to the country club. You know what I mean? What's going on? Like I said, that leave the McDonald's girl thing in the United States because it has to be a place where you know everything, you understand the system, you understand the laws. Then you can do that type of stuff, right? But you got to find someone on your level when you're traveling abroad. I did most of my dating abroad because I lived as an expat for a very long time. Now I'm an immigrant, right? So it was a very different thing too. Expat, you're going home. Expat is temporary, right? So the experience of an expat, no matter how long they've lived in a place, is not the same as the experience of an immigrant. But I spent most of my time as an expat, so I did a lot of dating internationally anyway. And internationally, especially outside of the West, um, dating I suppose is more. It makes more sense and it's more intentional, right? So they're looking for parallel and equal yoke situations versus any kind of like hypergamy and somebody's trying to like date up and like all of that stuff. Most cultures don't go up, they go horizontally, they don't go vertically, which makes all the sense in the world. So um it kind of sucked to date in the United States because it was always felt like bargain bin dating, right? Because if the standard is hypergamy and the girls are dating up, then what that means all the guys are dating down, right? So for a guy, it was like, ugh, especially because I was able to taste international dating. So that changes things. I think if all you got is whatever your home city, then maybe not, because then maybe that's a matter of like this is just what dating is. But you know, trying to think. I don't think I dated in high school at all. And then when I was 18, I moved to the Philippines for a year. And then I came back to the U.S. So like, yeah, I think the first person I like dated was a Filipina. Then I came back to the U.S. and dated an American. Dramatic difference. Then I moved to Aviano, Italy. Um, Dated somebody in Italy. Dated somebody in Nice. Dramatic difference. Came back to the U.S. Ugh. Then I moved to China. Incredible. Almost got married in China. So they just, different standards. So if hypergamy is the standard, then you're used to dating down. Don't do that when you travel. Don't do that because most of those places they don't practice hypergamy, so they're not trying to date up. So you can actually date your equal instead of dating down as a man, and as a woman, it doesn't work out as well either because when you try to date up in a lot of foreign cultures, especially non-Western cultures, what ends up happening is if you try to date up, they're married already. So, you know what I mean? Because the way that they engage marriage ends up being a preponderance of the entire litany of the lifestyle, right? So what ends up happening is you'll go to places and you'll start asking people like, "Oh, where did you meet? Where did you meet? Where did you meet?" And like 80% of the people will be like, "Oh, we were classmates." So because you knew them the longest and you had the largest amount of life experience with that person, it just made good sense to start a relationship, and then the relationship worked, and then you got married, right? So the I'm not sure if hypergamy would work in a lot of these countries, and that's why it doesn't exist there because they marry who they know. You know what I mean? They don't marry strangers, so to speak. Whereas in hypergamy, a lot of times we actually marry strangers, and just strangers that can like take care of us. So it's a different situation. Good morning from Kenya. Good morning. Good morning. Very true. Yeah. Hi, Lydia. Good morning. Jaquan, good morning on fan base. You're the first commenter on fan base. No one's saying anything on Facebook today. Ooh, normally Facebook is buzzing. Is Lily in there? I guess not. I'm gonna have to go get water this morning. I didn't see her. I didn't see her come in today. Now, now in Kenya, are you dating or married? Oh, I'm married. Yeah, yep. I'm married. I dated in Kenya for a while though. Dated in Kisii, um, dated in Nairobi. Ooh. and then, got married in Meru. I am in Kenya. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the title of your live is different than the title of the other live. I think they all have something to do with dating, but yours, the title of your live is "Don't Marry the Maid." It's just because so many people marry the maid, and it sucks for them because it always falls apart. Don't marry the maid. That yeah, definitely don't do that. Don't do that. But it happens often. I was just talking about this guy. He wasn't one of our clients, thank God. But but he came through. And then a lot of times, clients from other places, like these relocation specialists, they don't have the infrastructure we have, so they'll drop people off, and then those people will find us because we have a law firm and they need legal work done and blah 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 blah. So we'll get people who are brought here by other, whatever. Some people that were scammed here, and then we got to fix their entire, it's a mess. But anyway, this guy came with his wife and ended up divorcing the wife to marry the maid, and then the maid's like horrific. I don't understand. I don't understand they can't, why they don't understand the maid is doing a job. Like, she's doing the job that you pay her to do. That doesn't mean that she's like the perfect wife. Like, if you marry her, she's not gonna be the maid anymore. It's a different person. Don't marry the maid. I don't know, but happens all the time, all the time. No, the wife is still here. Like, the wife was like, "F you, you want to divorce me and marry the maid, divorce me and marry the maid, but this is still my best life, so I'm not like I'm just gonna go live my best life elsewhere, you know." But yeah, no, she's still here. Guy has 3 kids with the maid, no kids with the wife. You know. But whatever. Where here in Kenya? I live in Diani Beach. Sorry about that. Got a text message. Yeah, I live in Diani Beach. Oh, the guy who married the maid. Where do they live? They live in Malindi. Still at the coast, yeah, but they live in Malindi. Yeah, yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. Oh man, I tell you though, there's one thing about not Italians. There's one thing about Europeans that I've noticed is Europeans they don't get married. I don't know if they're like all already married, but like he divorced the wife, has 3 kids with the maid, but they're not like people will call that woman his wife, but they're not married. So I don't know what that is with the Europeans. Like they'll you know be with a Kenyan forever. You know what I mean? Have kids with them and all of that, but they don't marry them. It's interesting. I don't know why. I don't know why Kenyans put up with it, quite frankly. But like most of our clients are um, either Afro Canadian, Afro Brits, or Afro Americans for the most part. We don't discriminate, so anybody can come through and be a client. But most of them are that, and they all get married. Like they get legally married, and and move on. But I don't know what it is with the Europeans. Maybe they're already married. I don't know. Yeah, there's if you look at like the black guys who are married to Kenyan girls, they're married to girls their own age. You know what I mean? Like they're married to girls that are within a couple years of them or whatever, maybe 10 years max, right? Which was the same with my dad and my mom. They were 10 years apart, right? Um, but the Europeans, now you're talking about like a 60-year-old man with a 20-year-old girl. Right? Like the Europeans are very different with the way that they're doing things. So it's bizarre. Yeah, it is a bit of a wait. Like you're like, let's say you die at 80. All right, great. Now the 20-year-old's 40. Can't really safely have kids anymore and you never married her. So she's not inheriting anything from your death. So you literally just wasted her entire life. It's weird. No, it's not. That's actually a great question. It's not just men. There's a lot of like 60-year-old women with 20-year-old boyfriends. Yeah. like Anna Nicole. So yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But it's like every European. It's weird. Like I've not met, you know, a European guy or lady who is actually married to their partner. It's all perpetual girlfriends and boyfriends. And have that with Black Americans as well. Prefer some prefer women that are way younger. Well, right, okay, so yeah, but they married them though. You know what I mean? Like, so some of them, yes, and I we have seen that where like there might be a guy who has no kids and he's 50, and now his money is together and like he can afford a household and he can afford kids and like, but he's 50, but he wants kids, and so like he's gonna start having kids at 50. Obviously he can't start having kids with a 45-year-old woman, right? But they marry him though, you know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, he may go get himself, I don't know, a 25-year-old or something because he's looking to have 5 kids or whatever, right? But he's going to marry that 25-year-old. They're going to start having kids at 26, 27, whatever, you know what I mean, and move on from there. Versus, like, there was this really cool club out here in Diani. It was called 40 Thieves. Really, really awesome, you know, club. I'm not a club person at this season in my life, but even me, I love this place, right? It was just the vibe of the atmosphere. It was more of a restaurant than like a bar, but the ocean actually like hit the side of the restaurant, right? So if you were sitting at the furthest like seat, the water would actually be like hitting the side of this place and all that, right? It was almost like in a cave overlooking the ocean. Amazing, amazing place, right? And so the guy had been with the Kenyan girl, had like two, three kids with him, with her. They'd been together for like 45 years. Never married her. The European guy that owned the place, right? He dies. His kids, who are older than her, right? So if he died at 80, but he has a son who's 60, but she's only 40. You know what I mean? It's like his kids show up. They're his oldest children, right? So they're his primary heirs, and this woman is not his wife. So it destroyed the entire thing. Like the property went into legal court battles, the business went into legal court battle. Like the business is gone. None of the kids are benefiting from the business. The property's locked up in court. No one's benefiting from the property. Like it's just a fucking mess. All he had to do was marry her. You know, and from to the best of my knowledge, like no wife showed up, so it's not like he didn't marry her because he's married to somebody else. The Europeans just don't. I don't know what the problem is, but they just don't do that. So they leave chaos. You know what I mean? Like once they die, they leave chaos in their wake. So I don't know what that is. And you know what, Athena? Like I'm being intentional about the European because I've seen white Americans and white Canadians marry. So it's not just white folks. You know what I mean? It's Europeans. Like it's the Germans and the Italians and the Belgians, like those folks, like they will not. You know, it's like it's like you're asking them for a kidney or something. They just won't do it. So it is bizarre. So I guess if I had to like wave people off of anybody or off of any group of people, I would probably say be careful with like your European crowd because they may waste your entire life, you know what I mean? And then when it's all said and done, you're screwed. That lady like went crazy because she had kids to feed, whatever. The court done locked up the business that was feeding the kids. Like she wasn't even trying to like make a come up. They've been together for decades, right? So she's just trying to continue her life. She ended up like when I say she went crazy, like she was spotted in the street naked, howling at the moon. Like she lost her mind. That that's absurd, for the mother of your children, you know what I mean, to be put in that situation. So I don't know what it is with them. I don't know what their motives are with that, but it's very, very bizarre. Yeah, no, you can look that up. It's a very well known situation. 40 Thieves, it's called. 40 Thieves, Deani. And if you like Google it, the amount of people you'll see like, oh my God, that was the greatest place. I'm so sad it's gone. Like it was a staple, and the vibe was just incredible. And I'm a pretty avid traveler, and there are very few places in the world that had a vibe like that place. It was a really really cool place to go. Sorry, YouTube. I don't think you actually need. Yeah, I don't think you need to be charging. You're good. But TikTok is dying. Let me see if I can put some charge in that one. Now I gotta balance you on the charging cords. I'm sorry if I look weird here. All right. Fan base, you okay? Yep, yep, okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah, super sad actually. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Super, super, duper sad. It's a mess. Oh, thanks for the follow. I haven't emailed you back. Thanks for the information. I will soon. Okay. Oh, hey, hey, how's it going? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, not a problem. There's always somebody around. They'll get back in touch with you. You're doing three. Yeah, I do it all. There's actually five of them. There's five lives going. There's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You're on YouTube and Fanbase. Is that six? Did I say five and it's six? No, it's five. Yeah, no, no, no. I mean, well, there's. I have the physical devices, so I can count the devices. I looked into Kenya Banks to educate myself a bit. Yeah, 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 no problem. Yeah, yeah, not a problem at all. Yeah, there's quite a few. There's also a U.S. bank here, Citibank. So Citibank is the only, as far as I know, unless a new one cropped up. Citibank's the only U.S. bank that's in Kenya. So if you prefer to deal with a U.S. bank, you can. Citibank has, I think, even in the United States, they're almost like a tier one bank, like one of those banks where you have to have 10,000 in the account at all times. Like I think that's how they operate. So there's that. So a lot of folks that they're like, no, I'm not. I use Navy Fed, you know. But if you already have an account with Citibank, then you can deal with them here as a individual. Outside of that, they only do corporate accounts, but your trust account would qualify as a corporate account. So if that's something that you wanted to maintain a banking relationship with a U.S. bank or something like that, you could. Yeah, yeah, Lydia. Yeah. I'm not going to be doing this probably like in this kind of Q&A format. I won't be doing it starting next week. So what I'll do is there'll be like a show on YouTube. So your YouTube guys will definitely get that, and then everybody else will get like clips of the show, like small little 1 minute clips or whatever, and then they'll be directed to YouTube. So I think I'm going to consolidate everything into YouTube here in a moment. TikTok, you might get lives as far as like while the show is being filmed. I might go live on TikTok and you guys would just have like behind the scenes access, but I won't be talking to you because I'll be doing the show. So it'll kind of just be like a camera over my shoulder type of thing. Yeah, I mean, so the amount of questions we get about dating, I'm surprised this live is not way bigger. Because we at least twice a day Am I going to be able to find love if I move out there? All the time. It's crazy. So, has anyone not been? Yes, actually, there have been a couple of women, and I mean couple. There have been two women in the last 15 years that could not, and I get it. Like most people who met them understand. They just have that very, very big chip on their shoulder, and like within 30 seconds of meeting someone, they're like, "Rah," like just met them and already they're like at their neck. So that I guess they maybe they need therapy. So I don't know. I'm not you know what I mean? But they're not, no one enjoys being around them. And they're both very similar. They're from different places in the United. One's from DC, and the other one is from Texas. But they're very similar, and they're like, rah, ness, and they're just not a joy to be around. Um, and so, yeah, I don't think that's a dating issue. That I think it's a personal issue. But they're just not. I think they see any kind of personal growth as like not being true to themselves or whatever. And so yeah. But those are the only two. Anyone who's like now we have a lot of couples who come here. They're already married. They're not looking for, you know what I mean. So there's plenty of people who came here and didn't marry anybody, whatever. But of the ones that were like, oh yeah, no, I'm open to dating. I'm looking for love. Da, 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 da. Those are the only two that didn't find it. Men find it very quickly, but you got to be careful, that you're dealing with the right person. Like, don't lose your mind. But men find options very, very quickly, and then they have to sift through those options and make sure they choose the right one. But ladies, it's not particularly difficult for ladies either. I guess ladies just have more at risk, obviously. So, they should be a bit choosier as well. But those are the only two folks that declared an intention to date, and it never worked out for them. And I don't, unless they work on themselves, I don't think it will. They're really like, if the phone rings and we see their name, like people cringe. Like they're just really not pleasant people to be around. And I think like those people sometimes don't realize how abrasive they are. And I'm being super, super nice, right? But how abrasive they are. And they blame everybody else when really they're the problem. So make sure you're ready. That's kind of what I said in the beginning. Not even kind of. That's what I said in the beginning of this whole thing. Is like, you got to be ready for a relationship yourself. Which is interesting because the permit that leads to dual citizenship has an age requirement on it. It's the only permit with an age requirement on it, right? So if you get a Class K permit and you're trying to become a dual citizen of Kenya, you have to be 35 years old. That helps. I think that really, really helps because like those people typically have lived enough life that they're actually serious. And so those folks that are like really like moving here and relocating here, they typically don't have a hard time making a connection and finding a match. But the folks who come as digital nomads, so they're younger, like an 18-year-old can get a digital nomad permit. An 18-year-old can also get an investor's permit, right? Doesn't happen that often because you need $100,000 in order to qualify for an investor's permit. You don't need to pay it to anybody, but you do need to show it in a Kenyan bank account. But they can get an investor's permit if they have the 100 grand. So digital nomad permits, investor permits can be any age, and then obviously just tourist visas, just coming for 3 months or something like that, any age, whatever. But the people who are coming and they're seeking, dual citizenship from the jump, those folks have to be at least 35 years old. So you get a kind of a different level of maturity there. Um, I have no idea what that would have to do with dating in Kenya. unless that's one of your like, unless that's one of your like, no goes or whatever. If somebody doesn't believe in the same origin of morality as you don't date them. I mean, whatever your preferences are. But it's pretty easy to have those conversations and just be like, look, this is what I stand for. Do you stand for the same thing? That it's actually, yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, no, totally. I think the easiest place. I don't think the easiest place was Kenya. Though obviously I got married in Kenya, and I obviously I enjoyed dating in Kenya the most. Um, but I think the easiest place to have those conversations was China. When I lived in China, it was really really easy to kind of have the this is what I expect. What do you expect? These are my deal breakers. What are your deal breakers? Like that. That was a very kind of normal conversation to have in the Chinese dating scene. So that and I feel like there was more honesty in those conversations over there because there was a mentality of there are so many people here that I will find what I'm looking for. So like I might as well just tell you the truth, you tell me the truth, and if it's not happening, it's not happening, and I will find what I'm looking for because there's damn near 2 billion people here. you know? And like that was kind of the attitude brought to it, which was a bit refreshing, especially at that time, I guess, in my dating journey or whatever. So that ended up definitely being the easiest place to have those kind of like what are your deal breaker conversations. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know what the cultural morality. Oh, wait. What are you talking about? No, I don't know what you're saying, brother. I thought I thought it clicked into me, but yeah, I don't know. Sorry, Chief. Yeah, sometimes it's just like talk to text or whatever. I almost did. I almost got. Yeah, listen. I almost got married in China. China was a great dating scene in the South. North of China is a different thing, but in Canton, which is Guangdong, great dating scene. What was dating like? I mean, for me, it was just what it's supposed to be. It was effortless to get to know people. People were honest. And again, I think it kind of came from the lack of pressure to like find someone because it was like they almost treated it as like a guarantee that they would find someone because of how many people, existed there by population. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, for me, it was just everything dating was supposed to be an honest, exercise in getting to know somebody who is considering a lifelong relationship type of thing. You know what I mean? So very, very, very easy to do there. It's similarly easy to do here, yes, similarly. Not with the lying thing though, because I think there's not a mindset of a guarantee that I will get somebody, right? Lily, can you bring me a bottle of water, please? So here, there's definitely a mindset of like I could die alone. That's a real possibility, right? And so because of that, people will lie to you. You know what I mean? Especially if they like really like you, which whatever. So what do you mean by lie to you? Like what kind of lies? Give me an example. Okay, I'll give you a perfect example. Actually, I had asked, "What's up, buddy?" I had asked a girl that I was thinking about dating in China, like what she did for a living, and she literally told me that she was like, well, not a streetwalker, but she was like, you know, a sex worker. Like she was like, "This is what I do. You're gonna find out someday anyway. Either accept it or don't accept it. I'll find somebody who accepts it." You know what I mean? Like that was the position. Like she just told the truth. And I was like, "Oh, all right. Well, that's not gonna work for me." But we were friends like the entire time. Like we stayed friends because she was just so honest. Like why would you throw away somebody who's that honest to you, right? And so if you ran into that here and that girl liked you and that girl like wanted to like marry, she'd lie about that. She would not tell you, "Oh, I used to be, a worker and but I'll quit for you," like that would not come up in conversation. So that's what I mean by like incredibly honest, because for them it was like, no, 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 I will find someone who will accept this. And like I'll get married if I want to get married regardless. Like it doesn't matter what my background is. And that was true. There were enough people there that they could find somebody no matter what they've done, in the past. So it just didn't make sense to lie. Like it just like to them it made no logical sense to lie about anything, no matter how bad it might seem. So they just told the truth, which was amazing. What's up, buddy? What's going on? Hmm? You still sleepy? You came all the way out here and you're still sleepy? You want to come up? Okay. You can come up, big guy. You still half asleep? Hmm? Hmm? Huh? You can go back to bed if you want. It's the weekend. You don't have any school or anything. All right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Super honest. Super honest. I really, really appreciated that as like a cultural difference. Especially I had, well, man, when I moved to China, it was 2009, right? So I moved to China. It was like 2009. I was there for till like 2011 or whatever. And the contrast between the U.S. and China was night and day, definitely. And I was there like when they were just getting everything started, so they hadn't like wiped out poverty yet or any of that stuff, but they were on their way to it. So it was cool. It was cool to see that happen. Yeah. Did you eat something? Hmm? You didn't eat? Okay. Go get something to eat. Tell. Yeah. Tell Lily what you want to eat. Yeah. Oh, Mama got some food for you.
I'm not supposed to get this up.
All right. Yeah, no, there were little quirks. Yeah, sure, sure, sure. Like like you're not supposed to buy anybody a watch as a gift,
Oh, coincidence. I don't
and you're
know.
not supposed to buy anybody a
No.
set of four anything as a gift. So I messed that up. Uh, but there are quirks like that, you know. But yeah, why not a watch? I guess in the culture it symbolizes like you're running out of time, like almost like a threat, which you know. And then four, the number four, which is 四, right, in Chinese, and 赛 in Cantonese, right? So in Mandarin, it's 四 and 赛 in Cantonese. It sounds like death. Like the word for death is like 死, right? So if you give somebody four of something, again, it could be considered like an insult. So, you know, so 5 piece set of whatever, 3 piece set of whatever, not four. And, you know, don't give a prospective father-in-law a watch. Not that that like stopped the dating or whatever, but there's little things like that, little mistakes you can make if you don't know. One thing about most cultures is they get that you don't know. You know what I mean? So they don't take it ridiculously personal. It's one thing we got to learn. I tell you, like when an American wigs out, it's typically something that anyone thinking logically could just be like, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm not in America. How would they know that?" Most countries do that. That's a bad habit that we have, that we don't do that. We expect everyone to know what's okay and what's not okay in our culture. So I don't know. No, no, no. We don't do any of that in China. We don't do any relocation in China. It's tough. Like we know the process, but it's not easy. Definitely not easy. We know the process because of our passport portfolio clients. Some of them want Chinese access. Typically, it's easier for them to get Hong Kong, which would give them access to China. But yeah, it's tough. And China is like a 100% leasehold state, which is interesting, especially because typically a leasehold tenure of land ownership is like up to 99 years, right? China, it's 70, which is really interesting because it's like you don't expect people to live past 70. Like, what do you know what I mean? So with the 99 years, you're like, all right, like that person, should be gone by the time the 99 years comes up. But with 70, I don't know, man. Like I feel like there's going to be a lot of people still alive, and then their leasehold expires. And I don't know if they have, like in Kenya, you get, up to 99 years, and it does not start when you buy the property. It starts whenever the title was deeded, right? But then there's an automatic renewal. So like if you're still alive or like your family's there, whatever, you get an automatic renewal it should be automatically approved as long as you file the paperwork on time. But 70 years, I don't know. It just seems really, really, you know, light as far as human life expectancy is concerned. Because imagine if you're doing generational wealth and you do a trust and you do a house that's meant for your grandkids and you do it at their birth. Are those kids are not supposed to be alive in 70 years? Right? So I don't know. It is a weird situation. So most, like, even we have some Chinese clients that are of substance, and they'll buy houses in Macau and in Hong Kong because then it's their house forever. You know, they won't buy houses in China. They'll like rent a place in China, but they won't buy it. But China did, like 90% of Chinese are homeowners. So like I mean, they're doing their thing. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I guess nobody like gets you as much as your own people do, right? And so I think there was more of a connection dating in Africa as a as a black guy from America than there was dating in China. And in China, I was an expat, so there was that. I'm going back to America at some point. Whereas in Kenya, I'm an immigrant, so it's different when you're not going back as well. Because like there was a girl in here earlier asking about like finding a guy to like go to the United States or something, right? So if you're an expat, then that's what's going to happen. Like that's always part of what's on the table. And so then maybe you're not sure whether they're dating you to be dating you or whether they're dating you to go to America, right? But when you're an immigrant, you're moving to that country. So there is no chance of, going back to America and all of that stuff. So now it's like, you know, I live here. There's no chance of getting a U.S. passport. Now, how do you feel? Which U.S. passport isn't all it used to be cracked up to be, but it's not as wanted as it used to be. But still, it removes that factor of is this person really with me or are they just trying to get a passport? So there's that. All right. Anything else on this special dating edition of the live? Anything else on dating? How that plays into your relocation, so on and so forth. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. So, okay, for the rest of you guys, what they asked was since your Class K permit, you need to be 35 years old to qualify for a Class K permit, which is the only permit that leads to dual citizenship, is then the only other way to become a dual citizen marriage. So, technically, the answer is no. All right. You can become a citizenship through bloodline. So if your parents were Kenyan, there's a possibility that you can become a Kenyan via that. But outside of that, there's only one other very nuanced way to get citizenship. We don't talk about it often because it's something that essentially our law firm came up with that happens to meet the criteria of the law, but it's absolutely a loophole. So that's reserved for our clients that really want citizenship, you know, and are trying to do it the legal way. So there's your parents were Kenyan. You have a Class K permit for 7 years, and then there's you're married to someone for 7 years. So yes, if you are coming here and you're 21, which means now you're using either a digital nomad permit, an NGO permit, or a investor permit. One of those three probably. Um, there are some other permits, but those are the main three. So, and you're 21. So in 7 years, you're going to be 28. You're still not even 35, right? So you're nowhere near the Class K permit. You could find love, get married, stay married for the 7 years, and then yes, you would be able to access dual citizenship that way. So if you're looking to access dual citizenship younger than 35, and quite frankly, 35 is where it would start. So you would get your dual citizenship around 42, 43, something like that. So if you're looking to access it younger, then the options are is one of your parents Kenyan, or have you married a Kenyan, or one of our clients. And then if you're an onboarded client, then we can. Nope, we don't give away that IP for free. Actually, it was something that we figured out. Kenyan law firms don't think about it because they're Kenyan law firms. So it's something that we figured out with our legal team when we had a legal team in the United States, and it applies primarily to U.S. citizens. So it's not something that anyone else has ever figured out. Definitely gives us a market advantage. So it's not something that we discuss publicly because it's not something we can patent or anything like that. It's just an intricate understanding of different laws and the definitions of those laws in different places and how that's applied. So yeah, but we can do it. Oh no, not that. No, you never want to do that. You don't want to try to like bribe your way to citizenship. That's you'll get arrested. So definitely not that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean it just is what it is. There are trade secrets. That's one of ours. And that's the point. That's why no one else has figured it out. That's the point. It was a perfect storm. I can guarantee you, it was a perfect storm in which we figured it out, and it's not cheap. All right, I think we're good. No other questions around dating after relocating to Kenya. We're good on all of that. Well, last time I checked, it was really, really low. Like divorce rate was way below 10%. I think it was below 5%. But I believe the distribution of marital assets is based on contribution. So like if you're doing a divorce and you're separating assets, then all the contributing factors of the marriage are weighed by the court, and they decide like what the distribution is going to be. Yeah, like I mean, like like did you were there kids in the marriages? That's one of the contributing factors and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of different factors that could impact whether or not whether it's 50-50, whether it's 20, 80, whatever. Yeah, it's not set. It's essentially on a per case basis. Sure, sure. Super low. I'm trying. All the people I know who are divorced are they either married the maid, don't marry the maid, or they're divorcing their American partner or like their non-Kenyan partner. That's who the divorce is. I don't know any divorced Kenyans. It's just not the same. It's not the same. It's not incentivized, right? In a lot of Western places, like it's incentivized. It's not incentivized here. Yeah. So that is it. No other questions? You're good to go on this topic. All right. Maybe I will be here on Monday. I don't know. We are starting the whole show thing. So we might start just pushing out shows on YouTube, and then there'll just be like clips going on Facebook, or sorry, on TikTok. So that's definitely what we're transferring to. I don't know if that's going to start exactly on Monday, but it should start next week. So if it hasn't started yet, then I'll be live again on Monday, same time, same place. If not, then look to our YouTube for I don't know if I want to call it a podcast, but we'll just go over all of the different topics per show. So there'll be shorter shows. Like we've been here for what 2 hours and 11 minutes, so they'll be shorter and they'll cover one subject at a time, right? So maybe they'll be 30 minutes long, but they'll cover one aspect of what we do at a time. All right, guys. Talk to you guys later. Thanks for hanging out with me. And randomly, we might be able to hang out this way in the future, but we are shifting to that show format. All right, talk to you guys later. Thanks for hanging out with me. Let me start turning off all these guys. And that is it. See you guys later.